Tea started with a smile, or rather the absence of a real one. The plaza was packed with people, all moving in lazy synchronicity between storefronts and cafes, their paths lit by soft overlays suggesting deals tailored just for them. Music, engineered at just the right frequency to boost dopamine, floated from invisible speakers, wrapping the crowd in a gauzy warmth that felt less like happiness and more like sedation. I moved with them, outwardly indistinguishable. Neutral steps, calm posture, a blank willingness stitched into every programmed action. Then came the checkpoint. Just another casual emotion calibration booth, tucked neatly between a wellness smoothie stand and a compliance fashion outlet. I hadn't planned to stop, no one ever plans to, but the crowd funneled me in, a soft, irresistible current. The scanner blinked in the corner of my eye, a quick pulse, capturing micro-expressions, skin conductivity, pulse variability, pupil dilation. A behavioral audit disguised as a customer satisfaction survey. I thought nothing of it. I moved through. But then my wristband buzzed. Emotional anomaly detected. Authenticity deficit. Smile quality below acceptable parameters. Behavioral deviation logged. I froze in the flow of people for a second too long, long enough that a few nearby lenses tilted fractionally toward me. I forced a polite, socially acceptable chuckle and kept walking, heart hammering. Later, back in the safety of my apartment, sterile white, devoid of anything truly mine, I checked my compliance app. A new section had appeared beneath health metrics and consumption alignments, emotional stability, and there, blinking gently, a yellow warning light. Suggested action. Enroll in Emotion Sync calibration module. Suggested. For now. I sat in the synthetic stillness of my living room, the city's muted glow leaking through the window, and tried to pinpoint what had gone wrong. I had smiled. I knew I had, hadn't I? But deep down, I understood. It wasn't just about muscles stretching or teeth showing. It was about resonance. The scanners didn't measure the curve of your lips. They measured whether you believed it, whether your body, your biochemistry, your heart agreed. And mine didn't. Because earlier that day, standing in the plaza, I had seen it. Not through an epiphany, not through some grand revelation, but through a tiny crack in the routine. I had looked around at the endless flow of manufactured joy, the mandatory serenity, the pre-approved playlists and curated friendships, and I had understood fully, horribly, this wasn't life. This was a camp, a prison without walls. Everything, every purchase, every message, every micro-interaction was another reinforcement of invisible chains. Incentives disguised as choices. Surveillance disguised as security, happiness dictated, not discovered. And when I smiled, my body knew. It knew I didn't mean it. The system knew too. That was my real crime, not sadness, not anger, awareness. The next morning, when I checked my device, there was a new notification waiting, hovering in soft pastels meant to soothe. Due to recent emotional inconsistency, your cognitive health package has been temporarily downgraded. Please complete recommended realignment sessions to restore full access. Downgraded. I wasn't being punished. I was being corrected. The world didn't change overnight. It simply grew quieter around me. The first signs were almost imperceptible. Delays when I ordered food through the Civic app, slightly longer processing times at public kiosks, my name floating lower on social match algorithms where before I had hovered safely among the emotionally consistent. No one banned me. No one blocked me. They just slowed the river around me until I could feel the resistance clinging to my every move. I ignored the first few invites from the Emotion Sync platform, each message dripping with false warmth. We noticed you're struggling. Let us help you find your better self. When I declined, a notification appeared in my system hub. proactive engagement recommended to avoid stability penalties. Stability penalties. They spoke of them the way you'd speak of poor weather or data throttling, an inconvenience, not a death sentence. But that evening, as I waited to board a commuter pod, I watched a woman be quietly diverted to a side corridor after her wristband glitched red. No one shouted, no alarms blared. The crowd simply shifted to close the space she had occupied like water smoothing over a dropped stone. I went home. For days, I moved through the city like a man wrapped in gauze. Every face I passed smiled with easy compliance, every interaction infused with a brittle, polished brightness. It wasn't happiness, it was alignment. And inside me, a different storm was gathering. I could have tried harder. I could have clicked Enroll and begun the modules, simulated gratitude exercises, enforced laughter drills, mirror meditation sessions designed to train micro-expressions until even your blood believed the lie. I could have fought the creeping irrelevance, the gradual slide towards soft exclusion. But I didn't, because I couldn't unsee it. Every "have a wonderful day" chime at a doorway. Every "we care about your emotional journey" message when I hesitated too long at a selection screen. Every gentle prompt, smile, laugh, connect, not requests, directives. Mandatory for the survival of a machine that needed not just my labor or my consumption, but my very feelings, my inner world, aligned and available for analysis. The warning tone grew sharper, my transit privileges downgraded, my access to premium healthcare nudged into monitoring status. My communication apps began suggesting positive reflection chats with system counselors. One evening, after another long walk home through a city that seemed to pulse and breathe without needing me anymore, my device pinged again. Mandatory emotional compliance check scheduled. Failure to attend may affect civic status. I stared at the screen until the light blurred in my vision. There were no words for what I felt. No emoji in the curated set that could express it. It wasn't rage. It wasn't despair. It was simply the irreversible knowledge that I no longer belonged to myself. The appointment was held in a nondescript building near the outer ring of the city, the kind of place that once might have housed bureaucratic overflow, now repurposed into something infinitely more clinical. The lobby was empty save for the hum of filtration vents and a single attendant behind a polished desk whose smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Not that it needed to. The system measured her compliance, not her sincerity. I was ushered into a room without walls, just smooth panels that pulsed faintly with colors meant to soothe, pale blues, muted greens. A chair sat at the center, facing a screen. No humans, no comforting lies of empathy. The session began without warning. "Welcome to your emotional realignment interface," the voice intoned. Genderless, accentless, unthreatening. Today we will assist you in recalibrating your affective responses to better match civic wellness standards. Images flashed across the screen, smiling families, sunny parks, friends toasting with digital drinks. And at each prompt, a sensor tracked my reactions. Heart rate, galvanic skin response, micro-expressions so small they lived below conscious control. "Please indicate your emotional state," the voice said after each image. I lied at first. Happy, grateful, connected. But the sensors knew. The machine didn't listen to words. It listened to blood, to breath, to the infinitesimal betrayals of flesh. And the more I forced the responses, the more the system flagged the inconsistencies. After 20 minutes, the screen dimmed. A soft tone sounded, not punitive, but disappointed. Emotional alignment, unsuccessful. A second voice joined, warmer, falsely compassionate. "It's okay to struggle. Many citizens experience difficulty in their journey toward emotional optimization. We're here to help." The screen split into options. Enroll in Advanced Realignment Program. Request extended emotional tutoring. Consent to cognitive augmentation. No decline. No leave. I sat frozen, hands gripping the sides of the chair until my knuckles ached. The system didn't want anger. It didn't want sadness. It wanted surrender. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I imagined what it would feel like to give in, to let them sand down the sharp edges of my soul until I fit, until I smiled when prompted, until my eyes lit up on cue. I imagined peace, a hollow, polished, anesthetized peace. When I opened my eyes, I reached for the exit prompt, the emergency override, buried deep within the UI, meant for non-responsive subjects. The system warned me once. Exiting without compliance acknowledgement may result in status adjustment. I exited anyway. Outside, the sky felt lower somehow, the air heavier. My device buzzed as I crossed the lobby. Non-compliance recorded. Behavioral variance escalating. Further intervention required. I didn't run. Running would have been too obvious. I simply walked back into a city that no longer smiled at me, a city whose soft, warm voice was already beginning to turn cold. It didn't happen all at once. That would have been too crude, too noticeable. The system preferred subtler methods, the friction of forgotten permissions, the weight of invisible doors locking behind you. The morning after my failed realignment, I woke to find my apartment access downgraded. The door still opened, but the lights remained dim, the water rationed to dribbles, the environmental controls locked to a narrow range of temperatures just shy of comfortable. The system called it Resource Conservation Mode. I called it what it was, the beginning of my unpersoning. My wristband displayed a new symbol, a soft orange triangle, harmless at a glance but unmistakable to anyone trained to see it. It was the mark of someone under emotional review. No law had been broken, no trial scheduled, just an administrative flag that said, handle with care, or better yet, not at all. At work, my project access was temporarily reassigned for load balancing. My colleagues, those still permitted to smile their sanctioned smiles, avoided my gaze, their interactions carefully scripted to avoid association. In the cafeteria, my meal options were reduced to the wellness menu, bland nutrient pastes designed to optimize emotional equilibrium. Public spaces became less welcoming. Transportation slowed when I approached terminals. Smart kiosks took longer to respond, often redirecting me to alternate civic resources, a euphemism for isolation zones and rehabilitation centers. Ads tailored to me shifted tone, not colorful celebrations of belonging, but muted reminders of emotional accountability and the rewards of full resonance. I passed a mirror one evening, a polished security panel half shaded by grime, and for a moment didn't recognize myself. Not because my face had changed, but because the system had stripped away the context that once framed it. No tags floated above my head, no affinity scores, no alignment suggestions, just a man outlined in emptiness. A week after the failed session, an official notice arrived. Deviance report issued. Emotional incongruity exceeds acceptable thresholds. Mandatory recalibration session scheduled. This time, there would be no smiling booths, no gentle encouragements. The document detailed a new protocol, direct neural calibration, bypassing conscious resistance. The euphemisms barely concealed the truth. They intended to rewrite my emotional baseline by force. I sat on the edge of my bed, the thin mattress sagging under my weight, and stared at the glowing notice. The text pulsed softly, waiting for acknowledgement. I thought about surrendering, about how easy it would be to walk into the facility, sign the forms, let them lace my brain with compliant chemical rivers until I could smile on command again. I thought about the cost, not the procedures. not the physical intrusion. The cost of losing the last brittle sliver of myself that still said no when it mattered. I didn't acknowledge the notice. Instead, I packed what little I could carry: a battered jacket, a few strips of dried food from the ration packs, the old analog notebook I had hidden away, a relic of another time when thoughts didn't auto-sync to a cloud. As I left the building, the door didn't stop me. No alarm shrieked, no drones chased. The system didn't need to catch me. It had already decided. I was obsolete. The city beyond the checkpoints was not the polished mirror advertised in government projections. It was a scarred, patchwork landscape of half-forgotten service corridors, abandoned transit hubs, and crumbling civic centers where even the most loyal algorithms had stopped refreshing their directives. I moved through the skeletal remains of progress, past automated kiosks blinking error codes into the dark, past maintenance drones huddled in charging nests long disconnected from the power grid. The system's reach was absolute near the core, but here, on the fractures of the network, it thinned, became inconsistent, confused. I didn't have a destination, only a direction, away. The further I went, the more the air changed. It wasn't cleaner, just heavier, thicker with the smell of earth and rust and old humanity. I found places where the surveillance signals were weak, where the emotion monitors registered only static, where the tendrils of soft correction couldn't quite reach. The hunger was worse than the loneliness. My ration strips dwindled fast. Water became a scavenger's prize. Condensation scraped from rusted pipes. Collected rain pooled in shattered plastic. Nights were the hardest. The silence buzzed in my ears, a roaring absence where the system's constant soothing murmur used to live. I realized how deeply they had woven their presence into my brain. The background hum of notifications, wellness tips, emotional reinforcements. Without it, my mind felt like an abandoned house. Cold, echoing, fragile. One evening, following a trail of cracked pavement overgrown with stubborn weeds, I found a mark scratched into a derelict wall, a simple broken circle. I remembered whispers from old encrypted forums. The broken circle was a sign, a relic from those who had chosen another way. Hope flickered, faint and painful. I followed the trail deeper into the ruins until a shape emerged ahead, a doorway hidden behind hanging sheets of rusted metal. No biometric locks, no passive scanners, just a crude wooden sign lashed to the frame. No sync beyond this point. Inside, dim firelight flickered. Figures moved, wrapped in scavenged fabrics, faces drawn but alive in ways the polished city dwellers could never comprehend. Their eyes met mine without scanning, without suspicion, just a wary, shared understanding. An old woman stepped forward, her hair a tangled mat of gray and silver, her voice low and rough with disuse. "You lost your smile, too?" she asked. I nodded, the motion sending a tremor through my exhausted frame. She smiled, real, cracked, unmeasured. "Good. We only take real ones here." A hand reached out, not a scanner, not a contract, an invitation. I crossed the threshold and left the soft prison of manufactured emotions behind. Life beyond the sync zones was raw, unpredictable, and brutally honest. There were no daily emotional health updates, no subtle cues to recalibrate my posture or brighten my gaze. Here, feelings erupted without preamble. Anger, sorrow, laughter, even deep, marrow-shaking fear, not regulated, not optimized, simply lived. The people in the settlement carried their scars openly, both the visible and the invisible ones. Some bore marks of physical escape, broken limbs poorly set, eyes that flinched at sudden movement. Others carried quieter wounds, the hollowed look of those who had smiled too long against their will, who had molded their emotions until the original mold shattered. There were no leaders here, No official welcome protocols, no loyalty assessments. Survival was the only currency, and it was shared freely because everyone knew how fragile existence became once you refused to let a system calibrate your soul. I learned to move differently, not to anticipate approval, not to brace for surveillance, but simply to be. Tasks were communal, repairing broken solar panels salvaged from ruins, hunting, cooking over open fires, teaching children who had never learned to smile on command. No one cared if you laughed too loudly, if you cried without reason, if you raged at the sky. Here, emotions were not liabilities. They were the only proof that you hadn't surrendered. Some nights, we gathered by the largest fire, the stars unfiltered by augmented overlays, the sky so wide it made the weight of the old life seem laughable. Someone would pass around an ancient guitar, its strings out of tune but more alive than any perfect corporate symphony. Songs stumbled into being, broken and beautiful, stitched together from memory and pain and stubborn joy. I felt my face crack in strange new ways. Real smiles, unmeasured, unsupervised. Laughter that hurt because it hadn't been rehearsed. One night, as embers floated into the blackness, the old woman who had first welcomed me sat beside me. She smoked something acrid and herbal, the scent clinging to the folds of her worn jacket. "You know," she said, squinting at the fire, "they think we're dangerous. Not because we fight, because we remember." I nodded. Words felt too small. "They don't need to imprison you," she continued. "They just need you to smile when you don't want to agree when your gut screams no, to pretend long enough that you forget you ever felt different." I watched the flames dance, chaotic and free, and felt something deep inside me loosen, something that had been strangled so slowly I hadn't even noticed it gasping. In the city, I had been a file, a risk factor, an emotional variance statistic. Here, I was simply alive. No score, no audit, no optimization required. I lay back on the cold ground, the sky a cathedral of indifferent stars above me, and laughed, a real, cracked, wild sound that no system could measure, predict, or suppress. And for the first time since the system flagged my smile as insufficient, I didn't care who was listening.